Sports with Landon.
The Yankees have really, I think, made a mess of themselves this all season.
This is the worst.
Cashman's insistent that they're not running this roster back. He's acting like we can't see.
It's not a lie, if you believe it.
It just screams spare parts to me. It screams, let's put a donut on a car and then ride it on the highway for 500 miles and hope it doesn't fall off.
Live from New York, this is WIUR Radio.
We're back. Well, good afternoon, New Row, live from the Murphy Center in the WIUR studio. I'm Landon Popovic, and welcome to Empire State of Sports. I want to start today a little bit differently because last weekend meant so much to me. I attended the Intercollegiate Broadcasting System Awards with President Robbie Basil as I was nominated for Best Sports Talk Show, and I actually won. And honestly, I'm kind of still processing the whole thing. It's unbelievable to me that I came home with that award. Because if you've listened to the show, I think from the start, you know that the show started, it wasn't polished. I was kind of just sitting here talking about my favorite sports teams, like I was out at the lunch table with my friends, probably talking a little bit too loud into the microphone. But the goal was never an award, and I want to put that out there. The award was only possible because of everyone here, especially President Robbie Basil. The goal was really to get reps, to figure out if I could actually do this, to learn, how to run the board, to make mistakes, to get better, to just improve my craft. But the coolest part, I think, about this recognition is that it's not really just mine. It belongs to college radio itself. It belongs to WIUR for giving students real responsibility. It belongs to Iona for letting me learn by actually doing the job, not just talking about it in a classroom. And definitely it belongs to you, because a sports show only works. Someone on the other end is listening. So seriously, thank you. But here's the thing. Awards are nice, but New York sports don't pause for anyone. Knicks are stressing everyone out again. Baseball's around the corner. NFL all season never sleeps. So let's do what we always do. I'm Landon Popovic, and this is Empire State of Sports. Welcome in again. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be listening. Let's start out with the Knicks, because if you watched last night, I think everyone's kind of wondering if this Knicks team's for real. The San Antonio Spurs came into MSG last night. They were on an 11-game win streak, looking like the hottest team in all of basketball. And the Knicks absolutely punched them in the mouth, 114-89. Just an incredible sight, I think, for Knicks fans. After that Cavs game, I think all of us had a sour taste in our mouth. I was live on Gale Zone on Friday with co-host Chris Solaro. If you haven't checked that out, go ahead, check it out, because might have not been active on here, but I was definitely on the microphone in other places. But I said that I don't see this team getting out of the first round. And quite honestly, I don't think Sunday changed anything for me, but I'll get into that. It wasn't a squeaky win. It was definitely a dominating win. It wasn't a foul fest. It was a statement for this New York Knicks basketball team. After falling behind 19-7, it looked like, oh no, we're going to do this all over again. And then the Knicks ripped off a 26-2 run, absolutely turned that offense around. They had been struggling pretty much since the third quarter in Cleveland. And, that was the biggest run against the Spurs all year. So I think that does mean something. And it flipped the crowd. That MSG crowd being behind the Knicks is probably our largest asset as Knicks fans. And it might have even flipped the narrative on the East for some, not for me. I want to talk about Michael Bridges because, yes, really nice last night. 25 points, 10 for 17 from the floor, 5 for 9 from 3. Just an incredible performance, usual reliability we get from Bridges on the court. But, Jalen Brunson obviously is the heartbeat of this team. He yet again showed up, had 24 points, 7 assists, and he basically closed the first quarter by himself and turned an early hole into a lead. Karl Anthony Towns, I think, has been in headlines a lot lately because people don't know if he could really be the star that the Knicks are looking for outside of Jalen Brunson. I don't think last night really made me more assured on Karl Anthony Towns. Yes, nice performance, had double-digit points and rebounds, but that's what Cat's supposed to do. That's what a center is supposed to do. A double-double from Cat is pretty much the standard, and I don't think we've seen that enough this year. Josh Hart obviously is everywhere. Guy is just a complete player. When there were rumors that, hey, Josh Hart might be traded for cap reasons if the Knicks were to acquire Giannis, I said no, because Josh Hart is able to work as that second, almost, reliable player on this team. But here's the other piece, Victor Wembanyama, obviously just an incredible young athlete. The 7-footer is just insane. He gives you 25 points and 13 rebounds. He was still there, but the thing that stands out to everyone that watched was the 7 turnovers that the Knicks forced. The Knicks were everywhere all over the court. They won the overall turnover battle 22-24. My apologies. They turned 22 Spurs turnovers into 24 points for the Knicks. So they were able to capitalize on those second chance opportunities that are so crucial in this league that have bit the Knicks in the past. And they've really been unable to capitalize on that. But that was a good sight last night against the Spurs. So I'm asking, is the Knicks ceiling higher because of this game? You've got Brunson, a legitimate all-NBA level closer, Bridges as the perfect New York two-way wing, and Towns giving you, I guess, some space and size, but probably not enough. You just snapped the league's hottest win streak and did it by defending, running, blowing the game open with a knockout run. That's nothing to sneeze at. So where do I put the Knicks in the East? And the honest answer is, are they even in the Boston conversation? And can they even sniff Detroit and OKC? All right. Cool little just recap of that game. But, 26-2 run, just want to go back on that and why that matters. That's playoff response. That is the ability to turn regular season. That's the ability to turn second chance attempts into points. So a good sight from the Knicks. They were able to beat a hot team. I think a question regarding the Knicks all year is when they go toe-to-toe with elite teams, they really haven't been able to get the job done. And that's why when you look at the tiers of the league, if you split it up that way, the Knicks are not in the elite tier of OKC and Detroit, or even the tier below that with maybe the Spurs, the Cavs, and Boston. I think that this win meant a lot because of the fact it came against this red-hot Spurs team. If it didn't come against the Spurs, it would just be any other win. Coming in hot, people talk about momentum in sports, especially because of how important that is to teams. People talk about the hottest team wins in the playoffs, not the best team. And I think that holds true most of the time. Sometimes the hottest team is the best team. Sometimes it's not. Going back to Wembanyama, you were able to not necessarily remove Wembanyama from the equation, but any mistakes he did make, the Knicks were on top of and able to turn that into points. And that's what you have to do against a team that has an elite player like Wemby. You have to be able to turn those small mistakes that a player like him will make into points, because there's not going to be many of those mistakes. He still dropped 25 and had 13 rebounds. Still a ridiculous game. But 7 turnovers is a lot. And the fact the Knicks were able to do that, I think, tells a lot to a lot of fans. But the Knicks have not been able to do that on a consistent basis. And that's why I keep going back to the fact that this Knicks team is not at the elite tier of NBA teams in general. But in terms of the East, they might be in trouble. Obviously, a good site when defense creates offense. Rebounding margins, the Knicks able to win that rebound battle against the Spurs, which is so big because they have one of the tallest players in the NBA, one of the best rebounders in the league in Victor Wembanyama, and they were still able to win the boards battle. So that tells something to me as a fan watching that game at home on the couch. Moving over to some of the players in general, Jalen Brunson, I mentioned Jalen Brunson's just absurd. I think the guy is able to do exactly what we need week in and week out. He's never a guy that I question his ability to get it done. And that just continued here. I think I point back to the first loss against Detroit, where Jalen Brunson was pretty much removed from the competition, only had 4 points. It's still a problem to me that the Knicks are not able to create points without Jalen Brunson. Sorry, President Robbie Basil behind me, and former Gale Zone host Cam Woolley, hosts Woolly Mammoth Tuesdays on Tuesdays. Go take a listen tomorrow. But I think this win was really good to see because the Knicks were not panicking. They were able to stay composed in the late runs and generate that offense that this Knicks team has really been lacking. Obviously, a huge performance from Mikal Bridges. And the Knicks have had wing defense problems for decades. And in a playoff matchup that now you might have Tatum back in it, you're obviously going to have Donovan Mitchell back in it. It becomes that much more important. We don't know what Tatum is going to be back with the Celtics, but the Celtics have been absurd without Jason Tatum. I think that their fans are more so worried of it can ruin what they have going this season, which is something special in my opinion. And, the defensive coverage has been a problem for the Knicks, and it's obviously going to be a concern as we head towards the playoffs in the NBA, just a few months left in the regular season. But this was a dominant defensive performance for the New York Knicks last night. Karl Anthony Towns, obviously mid-performance, middle of the pack. I think that when you talk about Karl Anthony Towns as what he's been for the Knicks, I think one thing comes up, and that is just short. He has been just short of what the Knicks have asked of him. And that little bit of drop-off of where we expect Karl Anthony Towns to be and where he is enough to change the whole structure of this team. But going back to, are they contenders? How are they going to shape up as, the playoff picture starts to solidify? We start to see what the Celtics will look like with a healthy Jason Tatum back for them back in the East. Talking about the pros of the Knicks, I think there are a lot, but there are also a lot of negatives, and that's what's so frustrating. Obviously, the pros are that there are so many different shot creators on this team. When you talk about that starting five, I think so many of us were excited last year for it, and running it back this year with the same starting five just about is phenomenal. But still, the notion of that they're still short of something. There is still something missing in this Knicks lineup because we've seen them get bit multiple times. We've seen them not be able to play up to par with the Pistons of the league, who, let's face it, if the Knicks' goal is the NBA Finals, they have no chance against OKC. But the positives of the Knicks, talked about those multiple shot creators. They have Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart, Jalen Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns. These are all guys that could hit key shots, OG Anunoby, and some guys off the bench. Shamet is a big one. The new acquisition of Jose Alvarado off the bench has been a very positive factor for the Knicks, has led to a few wins, a few crucial wins for this team. But the Knicks really are only good on one part of the offense, and that's their half-court offense. When they have to push down the whole court. When there is a press on them, they really struggle. And we see that against a team like the Pistons. They're unable to get anything done when it comes down to a full court press. Cons of this team in general, I think that it's not really cons for the team, but cons for who they have to face. And that's obviously the returning Jason Tatum. We saw them unable to match up with Cleveland just a few nights ago, held to 11 points in the third quarter. That can't be sneezed at. That was a game that I think still told me more than that Spurs game did last night. They're unable to match up with the speed that Cleveland brings. They're unable to match up with the press that Detroit brings. And obviously, Karl Anthony Towns in a 7-game series, we saw his defense absolutely deteriorate in the playoffs last year. And I can 100% see that happening again. I can see the Knicks unable to get anything done because Karl Anthony Towns isn't simply able to do his job as a center. I think Karl Anthony Towns forgets his job as a center before anything else. Gone are the days of Shaquille O'Neal, who were defense first. And yes, they reigned in points, but it's because they came off of those turning defense into offense points, those fast breaks, those dunks. Now we have centers that all they want to do is shoot threes, which I don't know where that notion came from. Obviously, Karl Anthony Towns, a great three-point shooter, but sometimes we need you to post up in the paint. I saw Jalen Brunson get so mad at Karl Anthony Towns a few games ago. Can't remember what game it was. I think it may have been the Detroit game, the second one, where Brunson pretty much tells him, hey, bro, you got to post up. You got to post up. He was mad because obviously Brunson, a small guy, needs that center to create the space for him to drive to the net and get that deadly right hand in for the layup. Obviously, the questions are, would the Knicks even be able to beat Cleveland in a playoff series? And I don't know if that is a possibility because of what we saw a few nights ago. Because obviously the Knicks matched up well against the Spurs, but the Spurs are in the West. They're not really my focus. My focus is first we have to get out of the East. We've been unable to do that since the 90s. And I don't know if Jalen Brunson can really carry this team to that, because let's face it, that's what's going to have to happen. I haven't seen enough from Karl Anthony Towns and the supporting cast as much as I think it's amazing and that there is a lot of depth in this lineup, that there still might not be enough to get things done. Listen, the Knicks are really one injury away from the finals. They're one key injury away in the East from the finals. But we thought that coming into this year. We thought that without Tatum, without Halliburton, that these Knicks were going to be able to make a run, and they were undoubtedly the best team in the East. That obviously was not the case this year. They sit at third or fourth, battling for that spot with Cleveland. And that's why that game was so big. We were neck and neck with them in the standings. And with Tatum coming back, who Boston obviously has the 2 seed right now in the East, they're only going to get better with that. I think to think that Jason Tatum coming back would be a detriment to the team is just a foolish notion for the league and for the Knicks to even think of. But obviously, I still think this is a very balanced Knicks roster. I think Bridges has been a good acquisition, but I still go back to that trade because of the mass amount of picks that the Knicks gave up and think that that's the thing that cost us Giannis. That's the thing that cost us from taking the next step, from being the elite level team. But unfortunately, I'm not sure if the Knicks can ever recover from that because of the mass amount of picks they gave up. They don't really get any picks until next year that they are able to trade away. And when you start thinking about next year, then you start to think about age and things come into account. We saw a Rangers team that was so good one year, and we thought we're going to be perennial contenders in the NHL. But the age and the cap constraints really held that team back. And I could see that happening with the Knicks now. But after this short break, I'm going to be right back talking the Yankees offseason and how depth might already be an issue in New York.
Untouchable, unstoppable.
This is WIUR Sports Radio.
Hi, I'm Robbie Basil, president of WIUR Radio, and I hope you're enjoying today's show. Have you ever wanted to call the biggest games, the biggest moments for the biggest names for Iona Athletics? Then the newly founded WIUR Sports Radio is the place to be. Launched in January of 2025, our goal is to try and get broadcasters here at Iona an opportunity to learn, succeed, and get a chance to be on air. From getting to call the big moments at the hack,
Dinkins trying to go to the rack. Denied. Yafet Mundi.
to seeing the crack of the bat at City Park.
The line drive into left field, around third, and it kicks away. The Gales are going to win it in 10.
We make those moments happen on our brand new WIUR Sports Radio platform on Mixer. If you're interested, feel free to reach out to me via email or to the rest of my e-board to join the club. We are WIUR Sports Radio, the new home of Iona Athletics. Now, back to the show on WIUR, Iona University Radio.
Yep, we're back. Obviously talked about the Knicks, a lot going on there, but it's baseball season, guys. So let's shift from the Garden to Tampa because the Yankees are really in a weird spot. They might have the scariest lineup in baseball, and I'm not sugarcoating that. You look at that lineup last year, scored the most runs in the league, had the best run differential in the league. But yet somehow this offseason still feels like a miss to me. Here's the reality. Yankees are running back 2026 with basically the exact same starting lineup as last year. They led the entire league in home runs last season, and that was with Giancarlo Stanton missing half the year. Giancarlo Stanton dealing with tennis elbows yet again. Can't open a bag of chips, apparently. Got to bring back Ronald Torres. He did a good commercial a few years ago with Stanton. Open the little Gatorade bottle for him. Have him be his personal assistant or something. I don't know. Stanton is healthy, obviously, to start this season. Kind of. He's going to play, apparently. He's going to try and play the whole year. I don't know if that's a possibility. Aaron Judge is still the best hitter in the sport. Don't care what you say. And around them, they've got more power, more length, depth in the league. And they are able to get so much done in that lineup. So why am I calling this offense a blunder? I think it's because of one decision, that looks small on the surface. I think it's because, Trent Grisham taking that qualifying offer. I want to go back to that move. I want to go back to Trent Grisham accepting that qualifying offer. The Yankees assumed he'd hit the free agent market. They assumed that he would test the waters and get a multi-year deal somewhere else. And that opened the lane for maybe Spencer Jones making the opening day roster. It wouldn't be as difficult for Jason Dominguez to be on the Yankees roster. Spencer Jones, 6'7" prospect, absolutely mashing in spring training. It's like a unicorn. I think Kevin Durant had coined that term. But instead, we got Trent Grisham. batting .087 in spring training, by the way. Hot start. Good job, Trent. And now, your potential superstar in Spencer Jones, who's already aging, already around 26, 27, has no lane to come up this year. Jason Dominguez might not have a lane to start this year in the MLB. Jason Dominguez might not have a spot on the roster this year. It's a real possibility. And it all stems back to Trent Grisham accepting the qualifying offer. It's disappointing to me because on top of that, Cody Bellinger's apparently dealing with back issues. And back issues are something that really scare me because as a Yankee fan, the Yankees saw Don Mattingly, one of the best prolific hitters in all of baseball, the captain of the Yankees, go down and pretty much deteriorate in front of their eyes because of a back injury. But he hasn't played since Thursday, hoping he'll be back in lineups by the end of the week. But did Brian Cashman do enough? Is this Yankees team enough to get it done? Because it's basically the same group. Let's dig into it. But, obviously, big picture, Yankees didn't get worse, at least. The Yankees easily could have gotten worse. It looked like they were going to get worse with Cody Bellinger seemingly about a leaf. But he couldn't find that money anywhere else. Let's be honest. He has an incredible contract. I think Brian Cashman did a great job there. But they also didn't get better. And I think there was a lane for the Yankees to get better if Trent Grisham just did not return to this team. I think you replace Trent Grisham with Spencer Jones. I think this team becomes infinitely better. I know there are worries about Spencer Jones because of his strikeout numbers, because of, the worry that he could be a Joey Gallo type player. And that's not what the Yankees thought when they drafted him. They thought he was going to be an Aaron Judge type player. But would Joey Gallo really be the worst case? I don't think so. But the AL East has really improved around them, I think. I think the Red Sox have gotten better. Had a lot of acquisitions on the pitching side, which was a huge downfall of the team last year. But obviously the question that I think all Yankees fans think about this team is we have a lot of players that are aging. The window is closing. When are the Yankees going to go all in? We might not have a season next year too. That is completely a possibility. There might not be Major League Baseball in 2027. And this championship window is directly tied to Aaron Judge. It's directly tied to Garrett Cole, your team's ace. It's tied to Carlos Rodon. All these players have injury histories. Some of them injured right now, won't start the season until later on. I think that when you talk about the window closing, it's really scary to think that we might not have a season next year. And the fact that the Yankees didn't go all in this offseason when we might not have a season next year hurt. I mean, the question is, if Trent Grisham really does play this bad, if he has a under 100 batting average going into, let's say, July, let's say the trade deadline is approaching, he has under a 200 average. Yes, the home run numbers, I think, will still be there. But if he's unable to even put up 3/4 of the production he did last year, I think that's enough precedent to say, hey, let's call up the kid, Spencer Jones. He's been tearing it up. He's a great outfielder. But I think the problem with this team that, obviously keeps coming back to me is we've constantly blundered having youth in the farm system that teams are more than willing to at least trade for to get major league talent. I go back to 2017 offseason or 2018 offseason. Garrett Cole gets traded. The Yankees had a window to make that trade. They had a lane. It was Miguel Andujar and Clint Frazier. But the Yankees chose not to do that. I'm scared. Robbie Basil just left the studio. But, the reality of this lineup is that they are really good. They are prolific. And if you add Spencer Jones to that, it can be the next level of elite. But they've constantly showed time and time again, they handicap their young players and will put them in AAA to get reps, but not the MLB. They'll sign these transition players, but Aaron Boone has so much blind loyalty that he is willing to just stick with those players. TJ LeMahieu last year, one of the worst qualified hitters in all of baseball. Let's keep playing him because I'm Aaron Boone and I have to be known as the player's coach. Obviously, a concern about the lineup is it might be strikeout heavy, very dependent on health, but definitely a high ceiling, low reliability type of lineup. And that's without even talking about the pitching. We're not talking about the fact that the Yankees are going to be out without Garrett Cole and Carlos Rodon. And our decision was, let's get another injury-prone guy, Ryan Weathers. Let's say something positive about Ryan Weathers, because I hate to be so negative, especially in this world right now. Ryan Weathers absolutely balled out in his first spring training start. He peppered the zone, had great movement, great velo on all of his pitches. He was incredible. But this is a guy who hasn't played in 2 years because he was out all of last year. He's a guy who's been out more games than he's played. In what world am I supposed to think that that's an adequate solution to Garrett Cole and Carlos Rodon probably not starting until mid-May? You could say Garrett Cole ramping up to be ready for the end of April. That's a lie. Cap, that means lies. We've seen this story before. Carlos Rodon was apparently going to be ready for opening day. Now they're like, nah, we good. He ain't going to start. We'll throw Ryan Weathers in there. We're good. And the problem is the Yankees are afraid to commit to youth. We have so many pitchers in that minor league system. LaGrange, I don't think he's going to make the roster. Kid's absolutely insane. Struck out Aaron Judge on a 103-mile-an-hour fastball. This could be a guy that could immediately be inputted into our bullpen. Be elite. So many concerns with this team. And I think I keep going back to the fact that the Yankees did not make any pitching acquisitions. The bullpen got way worse. Way worse. That bullpen is without Devin Williams and Luke Weaver packing their bags for Queens. They are some great pitchers that the Yankees are going to be without. Yes, they had their ups and downs last year, but they are still great bullpen arms that the Yankees are going to be without this season, and they did nothing to really replace that. So maybe LaGrange does get a shot. Maybe it's in the bullpen. Aaron Boone has compared him to Dellin Betances in player comps. So I think that they have the youth in their organization to fill those holes, but I don't know if the Yankees as a ball club are willing to use the youth to plug those holes. Because the next Yankees superstar might easily be in AAA and never be called up. Because this team just seems to refuse to do that. And I keep thinking that the Yankees always talk about building a team for October. The Yankees have never shown me they have built a team for October because they constantly fall short. They are constantly runner-up. They are constantly losing to the same teams in the playoffs. They are constantly significantly worse than their opponent. So Brian Cashman, yes, he might be able to build a team for 162 games in the regular season, but not in October. Shifting a little bit to Volpe, obviously Anthony Volpe, always a huge conversation for us Yankee fans. I think that all of us are very mixed on what we think on Anthony Volpe as a player. I think there's one thing that's undeniable, and it's that his defense is otherworldly. It is great. The only reason he struggled last year is because, one, he had Jazz Chisholm playing third base, who is not a third baseman. Anthony Volpe had to cover more ground. I think people tend to forget that. I think people tend to forget that Anthony Volpe was a great defender. Won a Gold Glove his rookie year. Obviously, the bat is still a question. What Anthony Volpe are we going to see? Are we going to see the Anthony Volpe we were promised? Or is he going to continue to fall short? Bat 200, hit 20 home runs, or is he going to bat 240 and hit 10 home runs? I feel like there's no in between for this kid. And it really sucks. There are a lot of names floating around on who the Yankees could get mid-season, perhaps. But I want to talk about who the Yankees have plugging that hole right now with Anthony Volpe set to miss the first month of the season. And that is Jose Caballero. I think Yankees fans are going to be absolutely sick of Jose Caballero before Anthony Volpe is even close to coming back, because I think Yankees fans are absolutely in love with him, but they don't notice that he's just a mid player at best. He is worse than Anthony Volpe. I know some people had a debate last year that Caballero was better than Volpe. Absolutely ridiculous to bring that up. You have one kid with all the tools. He has the tools. It's just if he's able to tap into them at the major league level. I remember Vladimir Guerrero Jr. struggled his first two or so years in the MLB. He had a terrible rookie season. Absolutely terrible. When he got called up at 18, 19 years old, he was meant to be like his dad. And when he fell short, people kind of gave up on him. Sound familiar? Sounds like Anthony Volpe. But in his third year, he absolutely crushed it and is now one of the best first basemen in all of baseball, offensively and defensively. I think the Yankees have given Anthony Volpe a lot of leeway. But right now, we have no better option on this team to plug that hole. George Lombard is still years away from making the MLB. His glove is there, but his bat is not. And we saw Anthony Volpe might have been called up too early. That's something I don't think fans talk about too much. I think it's why the Yankees have started to be hesitant again on calling up their young players because of that. I think the Yankees do have a young nucleus that can be great, but it's if the Yankees give them, the chance to be great on the roster. I saw that Oswald Peraza, he was ruined by this team. Miguel Andujar, after they got Gio Urshela, came back from the injury, ruined by this Yankees team. I've seen it time and time again that the Yankees call up players, and when they're not good, they have such a short leash on them and don't want to give them playing time at the major league level because they're so scared. Obviously, interesting to see if the Yankees, go with the development type of route on this team, or they go and buy some players. Be like the Yankees of the past. Fans have been very patient for this Yankees team. But I think now they have a lot of urgency, and it really pains me to see that they don't have the same urgency that the fans do. I don't think the players have the urgency. I don't think the team has the urgency. I don't think the organization as a whole is invested in winning. I think they are invested in making October because then they get their share of the pot. And that's it. That's all they care about. That's all Hal cares about, making the board a little bit happy. The Judge window really matters. I think the Yankees aren't going to wait much longer on Anthony Volpe. I could see them making a midseason trade for CJ Abrams. The next shortstop might not even be in the organization, although we draft so many of them. Please, can we draft a catcher or something? Actually, we draft a lot of those too. Can we draft anything else? Third baseman? I feel like we got none of those. None. Would have helped last year. Love McMahon, though. I think championship teams rarely wait on development, and I think that's kind of been a problem, but also the inverse as well, is their refusal to call up players has also been a problem, as well as giving players too much development time. But interesting to see what happens in the Bronx. When we get back, we got some action as we're going to talk men's and women's Iona basketball.
This is WIUR Radio.
Hi, I'm Morgan Beastie from the Ionian, and I hope you're enjoying today's show. Are you looking for the latest scoop on campus news, sports, and more? Check out the Ionian, Iona University's very own award-winning student newspaper. We keep you up to date with everything happening on and off campus. Want to know about the big game, the latest campus event? It's all in the Ionian. Join the conversation. Read, write, and get involved. Visit www.theionian.org or pick up a copy around campus. Stay informed, stay connected. Now, back to WIUR, Iona University Radio.
We're back. Iona basketball has really been a part of my life this year, calling some games on WIUR Sports with Robbie Basil. We have so many young kids in this group that are so good at what they do. Chase Caridi, Crystal Laro actually sitting in the booth right now. Two great young voices that were on WIUR Sports for us calling basketball games this past season. So happy that I'm going to have them here next year. Excited to see what they do. But first, I'm really excited to see what Iona basketball does, because both the men's and women's teams are heading to the MAC championship in Atlantic City. I'll be there, obviously calling it with Robbie Basil, who is the whole reason any of this is possible. And when you unpack, I think, both the men's and women's brackets, it's a tale of two completely different landscapes. I think that the men's side is completely unpredictable. I think there are two juggernauts on the women's side. And, looking at that a little bit more, obviously some news has come out recently that Siena might be without one of its best players. That could pose a huge upset in the entire bracket. And talking about the men's team that has obviously been just a roller coaster all season. First off, congratulations to Kosi Akamitu for winning MAC Player of the Week. Definitely deserved. Had his second highest career points, 22, on Friday night when the Gales took on Ryder. He was pulled late, probably would have broken his career high. But looking at the matchups themselves of the MAC championship, Iona is going to be playing Siena for the women's. Iona split against Siena in the regular season. They obviously go straight to Saturday, being within the top 6 seeding of the MAC tournament. I just want to talk about this women's team as a whole, because I think they are the biggest sleeper in the entire tournament. I'm going to put that out there. I think that the Iona women's team is the biggest sleeper. They're red hot right now, still on a 5-game win streak to end the season. Was just incredible after starting 1-4 in conference play to turn around and solidify that number 4 seed for the Gales. Been so many players that get it done on that team, so many shifty players, Maya Zaccanini, Ella Fajardo. Obviously, the big two of Zoe Ward and Isabella Middleton. A lot of players that could get it done on that women's team, and I think that's what makes them special. I really love watching that team. I love calling their games because they're such a complete team. They compete night in and night out. I do have them, obviously, beating Siena and moving on, but there are two juggernauts in that tournament in Fairfield and Quinnipiac who are just absolutely incredible. And I obviously see, I've one of them at least making the championship. But my championship is going to be Fairfield versus Iona on the women's side. And unfortunately, I see Fairfield winning that. Fairfield is just so good. They have just a national level offense on that team. And I just don't see Iona being able to do it, unfortunately. But I do think this team is built for the tournament. I do think that they're really good at rebounds. They have a lot of people that could get it done, as I mentioned. So they could sneak up on Fairfield and be the biggest upset in college basketball. Moving on to the men's open play up on Thursday, because unfortunately they did not advance to Saturday automatically, because obviously they had their ups and downs. If they had beaten Niagara, if they had beaten Ryder, they would have been in the top 6, which I think is what's so painful to this team. But similar to the women's, I think they have a lot of people that could get it done, but I don't think they all get it done at the same time. And I think that's been the problem. But the last 2 games, talk about those. They beat Ryder handily. Just an absolute domination. We've seen the emergence of Jungers and Fall, Cormier, a lot of players coming in to step in. Saw Matt Reed have an incredible dunk Friday night. So this team, I think, is deeper than even the Gales faithful know it is. But unlike the women's, I don't think there's really any clear-cut favorite. Iona opens up play against Sacred Heart. I do see them moving on, and then they would probably play Merrimack, who I think are the biggest frauds in the entire tournament. Then I'd see them playing Marist, and I think that's where they meet their match, unfortunately. Looking forward to being on the call next week with Robbie Basil. I think that's really all I have for this week. So I'll be back next Monday, assuming that I'm back by then. If not, that means that we're in the MAC championship for men's or women's. I'll see you guys next week on Empire State of Sports.
Live from New York, this is WIUR Radio.